Hello, hi everyone. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation, John. I'm really very excited to be here in this online conference. It's a privilege to be connected with so many passionate educators on a Saturday morning. I think if you are joining from that part of the world, that means you are passionate about education. And happy Teachers Day, first of all. An event that brings us here. So I'd like to share a little bit about my journey in teacher education. First of all, I'm a teacher. I started teaching in 2004. And although I have worn several hats throughout my career, every time when someone asks about my profession, I'm a teacher is my immediate response. So teaching English, I think I really enjoy this profession because it allows me to be a part of someone's language learning journey. So it's fascinating. I find it really fascinating. So I taught English and then I joined the British Council and I worked there for nearly 10 years in the British Council, Turkey. I started as an ELT project assistant and I left the British Council as a programs manager. So during this period, I learned about project management, but I also learned about online teacher education because when I was working for the British Council, so we had online teacher development projects for the first time in 2008. So after that, I started my postgraduate diploma in online education and I learned about online teaching and e-moderation in particular. So e-moderation is a process of engaging learners, participants in an online discussion, initially facilitating the discussion and then taking a step back to allow them to drive the ongoing discussion. And we also worked with Celestin in a project. He will tell us more about it. So we worked together as online tutors, e-moderators in a teacher development project. So after working for the British Council for nearly 10 years, I went back to teaching. So I think there came a point in my life when I made a conscious decision to go back to teaching, to return to teaching. I think it was a very challenging decision and also a very rewarding one for my professional journey. So I think it's important also for teacher educators to have this practical experience, especially in pre-service teacher education. I see there is a gap between theory and practice. So from working in an office with, flexible working hours, teaching was very different. It had strict schedules and sometimes I didn't even get breaks. So teaching is not easy. So after so many years, I remembered how difficult it was mentally, physically, emotionally. So as a teacher, you also need to learn new things constantly, especially with technology changing. It's so fast and it's a job where you are always active, always learning. You can never say, I know it all. So for that reason, I continued my education. So I did my MA in curriculum and instruction. And I actually studied teacher educator needs assessment in my thesis. And in the meantime, I started to lead a community for teacher educators. So I find community building
Sirin, we've lost you for a second there. You're breaking up.
sophisticated. There is no formulas different. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, where did you lose me? I can repeat that part.
Just the last 5 seconds, I think.
Okay, so I was just saying that I'm now working towards a PhD and I have a new research interest, mentoring teacher research. So I'm helping teacher educators with their research. So I can briefly summarize that in addition to being a teacher and teacher educator, I'm an e-moderator, research mentor, and community leader. So these are the other areas that I'm trying to improve myself. Thank you. It's been a bit long story, but it's not easy to really summarize because yes, it's just every single day we have new skills, competencies, and new interests. So it's really very exciting. I'd also like to hear about our audience, about their professional journey. If you can summarize in the Q&A, I would also like to hear from your professional journey.
Great. Thank you so much indeed, Sirin. And before we move on to Celestin, who's going to give a little bit of a summary about his career to date, got great question from Alma that's come in, Sirin, especially in relation to what you were saying about going back into teaching, becoming a teacher educator, going back into teaching, that kind of thing. Alma's question is there one distinct feature that sets a teacher apart from a teacher educator? What do you think about that? It's a tough question. First off, early in the morning, but a distinct feature that separates a teacher from a teacher educator. What are your thoughts on that?
There are, of course, well, being a teacher and teacher educator are intertwined, but there are some different sets of skills that a teacher educator improves or might have. So, for example, if I give experience from my current practice in one course that I work now for the British Council in the ACT course, it's Assured Certificate for Teacher Educators. I work with teachers and I learn how to give feedback, how to give constructive feedback to teachers. So although it seems like, giving feedback, we also give feedback to our students. So it's building on this particular skill from my teaching experience and transferring it to a teacher educator context. So there are things that are common sometimes. If I didn't have this teaching experience, I wouldn't be able to, understand those teacher educators' contexts clearly. So, well, it's a very difficult question, but having this previous teaching experience is a valuable experience, I think, to be a teacher educator, and then transferring these skills to a different context and building on them is what being a teacher educator is about.
I think that's right, isn't it? I think you made a very important point there in response to Alma's question, this thing about the importance of teaching skills. If you want to be a teacher educator, or if you want to develop your skills as a teacher educator, absolutely, aren't they? This platform to build on. An example that you gave about giving feedback. So you're absolutely right, aren't you? As a teacher, if we're looking at what distinguishes a teacher from a teacher educator in terms of skills. So you're absolutely right, aren't you? That as a teacher, then you have to give feedback on your students' learning, right? So, and it's the same as with a teacher educator. You need to be able to give feedback on teachers' learning, obviously, but understanding how to do that in a particular context with adults rather than children. That's the kind of skill that you can build on, but you need to develop further as a teacher educator. Brilliant. So as Sirin was saying, any comments that you've got listening today, you'd put them in the question and answer box. Any thoughts about important things in your career development, some turning points, anything that you would like to share with us while we hand over to Celestin? Very warm welcome, Celestin. Sorry to keep you waiting for so long. We get a chance to tell us a little bit about what you do currently. Just set the scene about your role and career, if you could. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Thank you for this moment. I'm glad to be here. So after my studies at University of Rwanda College of Education, I started the teaching career as a secondary teacher. I currently teach English in a public school. My students are between 12 and 17 years old, and they have been an English teacher for 10 years. And I worked for BLF as an online tutor for 2 years. And now I'm an English teacher and a school-based mentor. That's what can I say. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Celestin. What school-based mentor? Yeah, what for our audience, what does that involve exactly? What do you do?
Okay, so in my country, a teacher educator is called a school-based mentor or a mentor trainer. Is the one to help teachers in a school-based service. So now a mentor trainer also is a school-based mentor, but trained to train other school-based mentors at sector level. That's the difference.
Okay, so in your mentoring, then what do you observe teachers? Do you meet with them regularly, look at their reflection or diaries, that kind of thing? Is that what you do?
Yeah, the duties of a school-based mentor is to help teachers to enhance their English language, to conduct trainings on teaching methodology, to do the peer observation, and also sharing the best practices. Here in my country, from 2009, English became the medium of instruction from primary school throughout the university. So now the different programs and strategies have been made to improve teachers' proficiency language. So now a school-based mentor is the one to coordinate the school-based service for teachers. So now English is one of the topics to be discussed during the CPD activities.
Got it. Okay. All right. That sounds very interesting and a very worthwhile thing to be involved in. Great. Okay, well, let's just move on slightly. Then, now that we understand a little bit about what you do, and to some extent a little bit about your journey, then this is got a question for both of you, but for the audience as well. In your country, so Sirin in Turkey and Celestin in Rwanda, what's the route into teacher education? So that's a question for Sirin and Celestin, but also for the audience as well. How do you actually become a teacher educator in Turkey or in Rwanda?
It's a very difficult question. So I will try to share my perspective, my observations. So if there are participants from Turkey, please feel free to add your own observations. So in Turkey, individuals who want to become teacher educators typically begin with a bachelor's degree in education, or if you're in an ELT in a related field, obtaining a master's degree or PhD, especially in education or Delta, adds value, of course, in acquiring advanced knowledge and skills, and having teaching experience is, of course, essential. So if I start with teacher education in state schools, so they often engage in professional development programs run by the ministry, so organized by the Ministry of Education or other educational organizations, institutions such as British Council or publishers in schools. For example, in Turkey, British Council has the English Together project in partnership with the ministry and Sabancı Foundation. And the project applies a community-based approach. So just like in Rwanda, the example that Celestin shared, the ministry engaged school leaders to support teachers, and selected teachers are trained to become mentor teachers, and they lead on the creation and implementation of CPD programs in their schools, in their communities. However, this is for the state schools, and I'm not sure, if it's growing. It's now across the country. But yes, teachers apply to become mentor teachers. But in private sector, there isn't a clear role for teachers who want to become teacher educators. So I can say that teacher educators can sometimes be a neglected audience, because I worked in private sector. So for example, some schools and universities have teacher development departments. In some institutions, depending on the vision and mission of the institution, there is a training culture. This is part of their curriculum. Then teacher educators can improve themselves there in those units. But if that's not part of the school's culture, then They can participate in conferences, workshops, seminars in different as another pathway. So these platforms offer opportunities for those teacher educators to enhance their skills as teacher educators, or building network with educational institutions, non-profits, governmental bodies like the British Council is one of them. It's essential. It opens doors and opportunities for collaboration. Sometimes there are teacher training positions, and teachers who want to become a teacher educator might look for these openings at universities or organizations, but usually they are selected from their existing teachers. So most of the time these openings are internal, but sometimes there might be, I have seen external ones as well. And recently I have started to see some new openings on LinkedIn for community leaders, community coordinators, community of practice leaders. So there are, I mean, it may not be so obvious, you know, maybe it's teacher training position in the leadership position, I can say, for teachers in different ways. But definitely, I believe that there is a need for more focused policies, initiatives to continually enhance the skills of teacher educators or the knowledge and awareness of this group. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Sirin. And I'm not sure to what extent the audience would agree as well, but I definitely agree with you that it seems to be that in many contexts that how do you become a teacher educator? That clearly demarcated route that says, okay, you need to do this, then you need to get that qualification, then these skills are what you need, and we're going to assess you against it. I'm not sure that in many contexts that kind of clearly marked out route exists for teacher educators, and that's some of the skills that you're talking about in terms of, okay, so how do you get into teacher education, developing networks, looking at jobs, all of those sorts of things. You need to work really hard, I think, to be able to do that. Celestin, what about in Rwanda? What's the situation there? How did you become a school-based mentor, for example?
For me, 3 years in the service, I've been selected by the school staff to be a school-based mentor or a teacher educator. As I said, my duty was to support teachers in English level, and also to share the best practice. My responsibility is to coordinate the school in service for teachers. But in my country, a teacher educator is a teacher selected or nominated by the school staff. This one should be a teacher of any teaching subject, but his English is good for comparing to other workmates. And this one should be new recruited teacher or any highly experienced teacher, because in my country, the government started creating new schools to reduce the big number of students in the classroom. So there you can find new teachers, and to have a school-based mentor is a must. So now each school should have a school-based mentor or a teacher educator. So after being selected, the Rwanda Basic Education Board, the REB, provide a CPD course certificate for those mentors in partnership with the University of Rwanda College of Education and the other educational partners. So their mentors or teacher educators were given manuals for CPD sessions, and also the working hours for teacher educators are reduced. Means that every Wednesday they conduct CPD sessions. Here also the teacher educators, they are teachers at their respective schools, and they are paid as teachers, not as teacher educators. Thank you.
Celestin, thank you very much indeed. That was really interesting, very, very clearly set out as well. So it's kind of selection based on, you know, your experience and perhaps subject knowledge, in this case, English language proficiency, and then some specific training to give you the kinds of specific skills you need as a school-based mentor. And that's interesting, isn't it, to how that compares to what Sirin was saying, and also what Diana, who's from Indonesia, she says, in Indonesia, you need to have a bachelor's degree, master degree, and if possible, a PhD in education. So there's a kind of a route there, and perhaps Diana is talking specifically about how to be a teacher educator in pre-service education, perhaps rather than in-service education. But you can see, if you compare what Diana is saying to what Celestin was saying, that they are, in a sense, diametrically opposed approaches and routes into teacher education, in the sense that Diana is talking about the kind of qualifications that you need, right, as a starting point, whereas in Celestin's case, referring to school-based mentoring, talking specifically about the skills that you need as a mentor. So already that's a very interesting kind of juxtaposition, isn't it, in coming to some sort of answer to the question, how do you become a teacher educator? Do you get qualifications, or is it about the very practical skills of mentoring in the case of Celestin? Great. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. So I'd like to move on a little bit now, but to continue a little bit about what's typical. Sirin, you gave a webinar, I remember, in August of this year, and you gave a webinar about your career that you've talked a little bit already about this morning. And this webinar, you had 3 other people with you. Were there lots of differences? You had a colleague from India, a colleague from America, works in Malaysia, a colleague who's based in Romania. We had very similar or very different paths?
Yes, very similar, very different is the right word. So first of all, none of us are linear, so that's for sure. So we all had turning points in our lives, in our careers. For me, moderation was one of the turning points. Another one was, again, starting teaching again. And then now I can community building. Now there are some turning points for them as well. You can find out more about this when you watch this webinar. It's very interesting. And we all started face-to-face, teaching face-to-face, and then we transferred to online teaching and training. Only I remember Radhika is more involved in designing teacher development, Doina and on training and mentoring, myself in community building. So we all have different strengths, obviously, throughout the year. And what I think our common one thing brought us all together, we are all interested in new models of teacher professional development. So that was one thing that was common for all of us. So perhaps that brought us together in one webinar.
Yeah, and I think, again, that sort of underlines the fact that there are lots of different routes, in the same way as there are lots of different roles that teacher educators perform. So clearly, you do need different routes. Thank you very much. Okay, so the question that we'd like to move on to now, to get Sirin and Celestin's views on this, really is to come back to perhaps one of the question that Alma asked, which is a broader question, which is about those key skills. Okay, so you've talked about the kinds of experience that you've had, the kind of qualifications that you've done, the kind of training that you've received. So out of all of those things, Sirin, Celestin, and everybody here, what do you think is the absolute key skill that a teacher educator needs? What distinguishes them from a teacher in that sense? I don't know. Sirin, did you want to tackle that first?
Yes, I would also like to give some examples from our previous webinar. For example, Radhika talked about facilitation skills in this session, so not following a traditional path. So trainer, you know, as the knowledge giver, but maybe improving facilitation skills is one area. Or she also talked about
We lost you a little bit there, Sirin. A few seconds.
own community or a workshop. What are the that starting your own community of practice facilitation skills? This is one skill that I have been working, and I know that this is an area that other teacher educators are working. Because in the British Council also we have a CPD leader support program. So trying to help. We are discovering what these facilitation skills are. Throughout this process, of course, we have lots of problems, just like in the classrooms, we have behavior problems, but in teacher education with adult learners, there are some other problems with sometimes technical problems. This requires digital skills or flexibility, problem-solving skills, and managerial skills, understanding cultural differences, some inclusive practices. So making training inclusive is an area that I've been now learning about. And also public speaking is one skill, for example, I'm really interested in. So learning about adult learning principles and self-directed learning is another area. And with artificial intelligence, I'm also trying to understand how to use it in research mentoring, because when giving feedback or when designing research, artificial intelligence, generative AI, ChatGPT, for example, can be really helpful. How to use it effectively by considering the ethical considerations as well. So there are so many skills that we can work on. These are the skills that I have been working.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Just mentioned the word artificial intelligence, and we've got a comment which we'll come back to that Alma's raised in relation to teacher education, and it's a good one. So if we have time, we'll come on to a little bit about AI as well. I'm going to have to press you though, Sirin, out of all of those things that you talked about, you know, they are very important. Yeah, is there something in particular though? I'm thinking about this, you know, the difference between teaching a language and supporting the professional development of a teacher. So something that really sticks out in your mind that you think, okay, that's fundamental. I really need that.
You mean for my own professional development, something that I need to...
Oh, yeah, informed by your own professional development, but you think that that's sort of generally really key?
The key, I think, facilitation skills, and this is something, you know, we also discussed this in the previous webinar. So now we have access to knowledge, we have access to everything we need through the internet, and with the advanced technology, we have access to webinar recordings. So I think accessing knowledge is not what we need now, but this facilitation skills and e-moderation in another sense, or facilitation skills. So knowing how to guide teachers and how to create a space and motivation for teachers to share with each other. This is really not very easy, or to hold yourself back when needed and interfering when needed. So this is really not a very easy task, because we grew up with a more, I mean, in my country, in a more traditional teacher or training role. So we used to have trainers in the room who knew, who were the knowledge givers. But now it's changing. So facilitation skills is becoming more important because we all bring our prior knowledge to the training room.
Okay.
So how to encourage, how to create a culture in the training room in which all teachers will be willing to share. So this is a skill that I think we all need to have.
That was beautifully put. And I think Julia, who's provided a comment as well, we touched on, she mentions facilitation skills. And as you're talking about it in that broad sense of creating that kind of democratic space in which teachers can develop and feel comfortable and share their experiences and learn collaboratively. And another point that you touched on was about motivation, which Julia also mentions as well, that key skill. You know, how do you motivate children if you're teaching them a language? Really different to how do you motivate adults if you're helping them to develop professionally. Okay, Celestin, what about yourself? If you're thinking, what the key skill that teacher educators need?
Here, I can say that, as Sirin says, the facilitation skills are needed. And here for me, as I said, I worked for BLA for 2 years as a online tutor. So online teaching was my best skills because I was familiar with the face-to-face learning or face-to-face teaching. So now the skills I got is how to summarize forum, to give feedback, and also to use the virtual learning. They were somehow difficult, but that was good skills. I also delivering workshops here, giving a clear instruction and also feedback. Those are the skills I got. So now as also my mentor, planning a CPD, those are the good skills. Also giving on-time feedback. That's what I can say.
Celestin, thank you very much indeed. I think it's really important what you've said there, because I think you know, that we talk about creating safe spaces and facilitation. There are some kind of hard skills as well, aren't there, which I think you've touched on, which are very, very important. And those hard skills, very similar to the kind of hard skills that a teacher needs as well. There's clear instructions, you know, what to do in order to engage with the learning content that you have, in clear feedback. So those basic communication skills, you know, that you need if you're standing up in front of other people, or if you're in a group with other people, to facilitate that group or to deliver that training session. It's really important that we don't, you know, that we don't forget about the importance of those hard skills. And the other thing that you mentioned around face-to-face versus digital as well, it's a really good one. One of the things that teacher educators need to do is to model good teaching behavior. Yeah, again, it's one of those fundamentals, isn't it? Sirin was talking about the importance of practical teaching experience as a teacher educator. So you need to be able to demonstrate, to model good teaching practice. And in the face-to-face environment, that's not necessarily so difficult. But teachers and teacher educators have had to develop, you know, experience and practice in the online environment extremely quickly, I would say, in many contexts due to the pandemic. And I think that's a big challenge, and therefore a big focus for learning, a big part of career development. How do you become technically competent in the online environment? How do you develop your ability to project your social presence? All of those sorts of things are just desperately important now, and are not necessarily given enough attention, that people kind of just assume that if you're a good teacher educator in the face-to-face environment, well, you can do the same thing in the online environment. So I think developing the skills in order to model good practice in the online environment, particularly important. And I think that's a little bit about what you were saying there, Celestin, as well as those hard skills as well that we shouldn't really forget about. Okay, then. So there's quite a few comments coming in now. Let me just pause for a second. Aldwin is talking about public speaking. Yeah, so I think I'm entirely sure what public speaking means, but I think if it's to do with clear communication in front of or alongside a group of people, yeah, I mean, desperately important. And you know, as with teachers, he talks about being self-conscious. You know, that you have to develop the ability to get over any shyness, I suppose, in the training room as well as the classroom as well. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Diana, again, a good point. I suppose, in a sense, if you mean you have to understand people as well as you have to understand the business of teaching, whereas teachers probably have to understand the business of teaching, the pedagogy, and less about understanding theories around adult learning. I think if that's what Diana's comments is about, that you need to have a different level of understanding when it comes to your audience, because you're dealing with adults rather than with children. Okay. And Kevsa, a fellow colleague also from Turkey, is talking about that they are a facilitator in Turkey and they need more support from mentors. So I think that that comment also, you know, reinforces what Sirin was saying about one of the fundamental key skills for her, which is around facilitation. It's certainly very true. Okay, then. So if we can just finish a little bit and maybe pick up on Kevsa's last point then. So we've been quite focused, I think, on careers. So how do teacher educators develop? What kinds of skills it is that they need to develop? And I was going to ask Sirin, you're extraordinarily experienced now, especially in relation to some of the professional development opportunities available through the British Council for Teacher Educators. Is there any, you know, just bringing this discussion on key skills to a close, on the courses that you've delivered, for example, the Assured Certificate, the Learning Pathways, the Pathway Builder, some of the COP Leader Support Program, all of those sorts of things. Again, what is it that you're happy with at the end of a course if teacher educators can understand, know, do? What you know, when you deliver training, when you support professional development of teacher educators, what are you focused on there in terms of their outcomes?
For teacher educators, I think, as we also have seen in the chat and from my own experience, teacher educators couldn't find a place for themselves. So, and we have been experiencing challenges. For example, our colleagues mentioned lack of support, lack of guidance. And for example, I remember in one study, new teacher educators have negative opinions about their capabilities or identities. So they have extra responsibilities, as Kevser mentioned, so dealing with administrative duties. So I think in the courses that I have delivered, one thing that really makes me feel relieved and happy is that we feel like a community. We support each other. Because unfortunately in some settings, teacher educators usually have no mentor or induction program when becoming a teacher educator. So therefore, I think it's very important to have a community of practice, community of learning in their professional development to support their knowledge building process. So this is what British Council is trying to do. So teacher educators are recognized. There is a section even on Teaching English website for teacher educators where you can participate in webinars and take part in some discussions, or if there is a local British Council community for teacher educators. So this is the most important thing. I think I feel I am supported if or I can support others in a way, and there will be some other opportunities as far as I know in the British Council for Teacher Educators. Actually, that's why we are here. So that's something I really value.
Okay, really, really important points, and something that you've touched on there that we haven't explored in detail, but when you talk about support networks, Kevsa was saying that he needs more support. These non-transactional skills, we've talked a little bit with Celestin about transactional skills like clarity of instructions, that kind of thing, and to some extent facilitation skills are also transactional skills that you can learn how to do. But these non-transactional skills, like a sense of professional belonging or developing networks to help you with maintaining resilience and motivation, that side of things, that we increasingly, I think that we recognize your ability to derive benefit from a network, from a group, as being fundamental to your sense of who you are, your well-being, your ability to bounce back if you can problems, that kind of thing. And that's right. I mean, one of the things that we are trying to encourage at the British Council is development of spaces where people, teacher educators, do feel that they're valued, that they're safe, that their opinions matter, that they belong to something, that they're not on their own. That's a really, really important point.
Yes, you are so right, John. So we talked about teacher well-being a lot, but yes, we also need to think about teacher educators' well-being. So it's needs to be recognized. So usually teachers are actually, as Celestin's example, am I right, Celestin? You're a mentor, also you're a teacher, so it's not like, these are very distinct professions, but still there needs to be a kind of recognition for teacher educators' well-being as well.
Okay. I was wondering whether Celestin was going to have a last word then, but okay, we've come to the end of this really, really interesting session. Thank you so much, Sirin and Celestin, for sharing your own personal experiences and your thoughts and beliefs about careers and learning and skills for teacher educators. And we've covered, a lot of different themes there and ideas that are a part of, the very important process of reflecting on how we develop as human beings, how we develop in our jobs, how do we become better teacher educators, how do we get into teacher education in the first place. Couple of points about AI and remote teaching that we didn't really come on to explore, but I'm hoping that we will be able to find a space to come back to those, really important topical questions and comments later on during today's sessions. Okay, so we're going to take a pause now. We're going to pause for 15 minutes or so, and then we're going to be talking to Mai and Charles. We're going to get their ideas in detail about some of the professional development opportunities they've experienced. So please stay with us, and we'll be starting again in about 30 minutes. So thank you very much indeed. See you